This is the voice of Julian. I run Demand Curve, which does growth training. I also write TechCrunch's marketing column, and I used to run marketing at a company called Webflow. Nat, I'll throw to you for your intro.
And I'm Matt. I run a company called Growth Machine, which is a content marketing and SEO agency. We've worked on the blogs for sites like QuickBooks, Yumly, Perfect Keto, to name a few, and our content's read by some 3 million people per month.
Nat is the guy who taught me how to do content marketing, so I knew how to bring him in. So how are we going to structure this webinar? We're going to share a couple batches of insights, and each batch will be followed by a short Q&A to answer your questions. So specifically, we're going to cover creating a keyword and content strategy, writing good content, and getting readers to actually buy from you. All right, Nat, over to you. Nat's going to run the first half of the webinar, and I will take the back half.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Julian. Hello, everyone who came in the last couple of minutes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, we can't cover everything content marketing related in 45 to 60 minutes, but we're going to cover some things that we think will be valuable to you. And we've broken it out into 3 main areas. So first up is designing a content strategy that is focused on actually driving revenue for you. Most people's content strategies are a bit more fractured than that. They're maybe just focused on raw traffic, or somebody said, hey, you should publish on your blog, and there's very little strategy behind it. So I'm going to talk a bit about how you can design one that actually drives results. Then a bit about writing in-depth yet concise content that Google likes, articles that will actually have positive ROI for you instead of just filling up the blog. And then Julian's going to come back in at the end about creating content that concludes the searcher's experience, which is a fancy way of saying answers their question and ultimately hopefully gets them to convert into whatever it is you want them to do when they arrive at your site. The main thing to keep in mind through all of this is that content marketing is just another form of growth. It's another form of marketing. The point of content is to increase your revenue. It is not to, well, okay, it can be to be an influencer, but even that ultimately should be about money. It's not, to just fill up your blog. It's not to look good. It's not to give a job to your nephew who has an English degree and nothing to do. It is to increase revenue. So that's really what we're going to tie everything together with talking about content today. And the first part of that is designing a content strategy that can actually drive results for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit. If you have questions, anything, feel free to toss them in. If there's a really good one, I might interrupt to answer it. Otherwise, there will be time at the end of this section to answer all of those. And tell me if I talk too quickly too, because I get a little excited sometimes about this stuff and can talk very fast. So designing content strategy that actually drives results. Content can basically serve 4 purposes for your business, assuming it's serving any purpose, or it can be focused around one of 4 goals. So the first one that a lot of people think of is virality, right? So writing something that is going to go crazy viral, get shared by millions of people, like a Wait But Why article or Dollar Shave Club video. We're not going to talk about this kind of focus with content at all. It is extremely difficult to engineer, very unreliable, and there are very, very few businesses that can do it well compared to what I prefer, which is SEO-focused content. So this is content that is focused on bringing in a consistent amount of traffic over time, a very predictable amount of traffic, so that you know how many visitors you're going to be getting month to month. So that's the second thing you could focus content on, is SEO. The third one is kind of related to SEO, but it's tangential in a way, which is links and PR. So these are pieces of content you create to increase your site authority, to make yourself a reference, to make you someone that is cited in the media, on other blogs. Oh, somebody asked, were you able to see something? Not yet. It's just audio right now. I might share some video stuff later, but for now, just audio. Julian and I decided it's kind of like good as a podcast style. I'll add a little bit of screen shares as it makes sense, but nothing you need to be seeing right now. But yes, so third is focused on links. And then the last is conversions. So creating content that helps your customer journey, helps turn them into buyers once they're already in your email list on your site. But ultimately, good content has to start with the end goal in mind, some kind of conversion, which is usually an email sign up, a request for info, maybe a purchase right off the bat. It's hard to optimize for direct to purchase from somebody showing up on your site for the first time from an article. It can work in certain cases. If we have time, we'll show some examples. But generally, the funnel that we tend to recommend is focusing on initially broad traffic capture through SEO, then narrowing that by purchase intent, and then getting higher conversions out of that high purchase intent content. So this is stuff that Julie and I are going to cover throughout the course of the webinar. So the first consideration then is designing a content strategy that can actually bring in a sufficient amount of traffic to be a meaningful benefit to your business. And the first part of this is that you have to kind of be willing to commit to it for a long time. Right? Content marketing, getting it started and trying to make it work is like a 6 to 12 month project. You really can't be looking for a quick win. I noticed that people coming from ads or sales have the toughest time getting used to this, in that if you're really going after SEO traffic on a newer site, you might not see anything more than 50 to 100 visitors a day from Google for 4 to 6 months, and that would be completely normal. So you've got to be comfortable with that, and you've got to be comfy with more fuzzy marketing. Again, like sales and ads, super clear attribution. You can build really nice, neat funnels on how everything is going. Content is a little bit harder. It can have a lot of less tangible value, and in some ways, it's more like design than direct marketing. And it doesn't make sense for all companies. Sometimes SEO is just too competitive to make sense. A good example of this is if you're in the health and wellness space, depending on the amount of money you're willing to throw at it, it does not always make sense. Or if you're in an area where everybody else is already throwing millions of dollars at it, mattresses are a good example of this. It's very hard to compete in SEO and content as a mattress company. Other times, there is not enough search traffic, right? And this is something that we're going to cover in a minute here when we get to planning content strategy, but sometimes there just aren't enough people looking for the things that you would write content about. And this can be true in some B2B companies. And it can also be true if your product is really novel or unexpected. If you are making something that people aren't looking for, or that they are not searching for a related problem for, but that they then are convinced to kind of buy or check it out once they stumble on it, it might be hard for you to do kind of search focused content there, and you should look for other channels. I saw a really good example of this earlier, which is, what's it called? It's Tush. I think the main name is Tushy, but the domain is something like Buy Tushy or Shop Tushy. It's a bidet edition for your toilet. So if you've ever had the pleasure of using a bidet and having warm water squirted at you after you've used the restroom, you know that the US is severely lacking in good bidet infrastructure. And so this company makes a toilet edition that gives you like a bidet in your home. And I think they're under $100, right? Really cool product. I'm probably going to buy one, but there's very little things that people would be searching for on a day-to-day basis that would have a clear funnel into buying that product. So SEO and content might not make the most sense for them. However, their Instagram marketing and their ads are incredible. If you want examples of really good social marketing, definitely check them out. But assuming you do pass all of those bars, right? There are people searching for it, and it's not crazy competitive, and your product's not too novel. There's a known problem your product is solving. Then it makes sense to actually consider this as a marketing channel. And there's a lot that goes into planning a really good content strategy, but we're going to start on kind of like, I'm going to go over a high-level version of how you might do it, and I'll actually share my screen a little bit for this, so that you can see some examples here. If you're not looking at your screen, if you're just on audio, that's fine. You'll still be able to listen and get some value, but I want to share this as I'm going. So let's start with the goal, right? Your goal is for people who are searching for high intent keywords to arrive at your site. So this is one of our properties, actually, cupandleaf.com. It's a tea blog and tea company. And when somebody searches best oolong tea, you can see we're the first spot here, right below the ads. So we're the first like non-ad position. And this is a very high converting page for us. Very commonly, people will click on this, right? They'll end up on our blog. They'll either end up in our quiz funnel, or they'll click through to the store. And then when they end up on the store, right, they're looking at these oolong teas, and then they tend to just pick one of these that's highly rated, right? Really good organic funnel. And so this is kind of the goal that you're aiming towards. And high level of how we do that is there's really like 3 parts to it. So one is, what are people already looking for? And then of what they're looking for, are there topics that are sufficiently low competition? And then of the things people are looking for and that are low competition, what makes sense to go after as a topic for your business? So the best place to start is usually to just take like a huge crazy list of every single thing you could talk about, dump it into a spreadsheet, and then start doing some research on it. There are easier ways to come up with that list. If you'll notice looking through, so this is the keyword list that I first put together for cup and leaf. If you notice, there are certain styles of keywords that repeat themselves. So for example, benefits. Chamomile tea benefits, green tea benefits, black tea benefits, right? These are ones where you could take a modifier like benefits and then add it to every root term, right? Like green tea, oolong tea, these ones that you can see up here. And then you'd immediately have a whole bunch of benefits. And you could take like a secondary modifier, right? And you can do this all in a spreadsheet where you've got all your modifiers, all of your base terms, and then it's like green tea benefits, bam, 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 bam. Like how much caffeine in green tea, black tea, right? They all kind of auto-generate and you'll have a few hundred keywords really quickly. That's one easy way to do it. Another is to just like take a pen and paper, see how many keywords you can come up with, how many topics you can come up with in 10 minutes, and then see among those topics what themes recur, right? What kind of formulas can you create for coming up with topics? But I would say start by coming up with at least 100, if not more topics. If you're not sure how to do that, you can Google like growth machine 100 keyword ideas, and you'll find an article I wrote on other ways to come up with this list. But then you can just dump that into a tool of your choice. So I'm using Ahrefs here. I really, really like Ahrefs. I think they've got the best data on keywords and links. There's other good ones like SEMrush, Mangools I've heard is very good as well. It doesn't matter a ton which one you use, just kind of being consistent in the one you use. But you're gonna dump them all in here, and then the first thing you're gonna look at is this volume number, right? So luckily all these keywords have pretty good volume, but if we go to the bottom here, right, some of these just wouldn't make good keywords, right? Like caffeine and yellow tea or how to make pu'er tea. Nobody's searching for this, right? These numbers here are a rough estimate of how many people are looking per month. And for something like this, or it's direct to consumer, e-commerce, low price point, you want at least 500, if not in the thousands volume for it to make sense for you to go after it. The second question then is this difficulty, right? So of the keywords that you end up with, like how difficult is each one relative to the others? So these are just scores out of 100. These ones are all really low difficulty, which is great. It means you can rank on them really quickly. But then if we look at something like green tea, insanely high difficulty, like rooibos tea, really high, or high-ish, right, 35. Benefits of green tea, really high. You might have to wait on those and you deprioritize them. And then the third question is this conversion intent. So one thing we learned early on is that these kinds of topics, like best oolong tea, very high conversion. Topics like oolong tea benefits, very low conversion, because those are mostly informational searches. They're people looking to learn about oolong tea, maybe already drinking it. Maybe somebody said, oh, there's this tea that's really good for you called oolong, and they looked it up, but they're not ready to buy right now. So that's the third thing that you need to consider in figuring out what keywords and what topics are going to go into your content plan. Once you kind of have all of that, I just like to use spreadsheets for this stuff. So I kind of like take all of it, dump it into spreadsheets, and then we can compare everything. We can say, all right, of all of the keywords that we can go after, what's their difficulty, what's their volume? And then this is a number that we made up at Growth Machine called like the target score. And it's the measure of the volume divided by the difficulty squared. And that's just useful because it helps us compare the ratio of the difficulty to volume for any given keyword for any client. And this is useful when you're looking at a list like this, where we've got, gosh, how many keywords do we have for the site here? All right, I think this is a little filtered, right? But so 300 odd initial keywords to go after, and then you're deciding how to prioritize them. You want to look at, again, volume, difficulty, and how targeted it can be. Once you've kind of gone through and done that initial research, that's kind of where you can start to pick the keywords that are going to fit that initial goal, right? Of being able to generate revenue, being able to rank on, right? So things that you actually have a chance of being competitive on, and of course, having sufficient volume for both of those to work out, right? That people are actually looking for this thing, they're actually going to show up on your site, and then if you pick things that are actually going to lead to conversions, then ideally they're going to lead to purchases down the line. That's kind of like a very high level of how you would do that content strategy planning. I've got a few other pieces like this that I can maybe share at the end, or pieces on this that I can share at the end, Julian, since it is kind of like a complex thing. But before we jump into Q&A, it's just like a couple like really small things I want to touch on about where these strategies fail. Because one of our most common kinds of companies we talk to are ones that have tried to do content on their own and it hasn't worked for whatever reason. And usually it's because their keywords are not sufficiently high volume that they're going after. So they're just going after things no one is looking for. They're publishing inconsistently. I'd say this is one of the biggest ones, is people who are publishing like an article here, an article there, maybe one or two every week or two, right? Really inconsistent. And that's very rarely going to lead to good results. The impatience, like I talked about at the beginning, not giving it time to work. And then weak content is the other really big one that we're going to talk about in the next section, which is sites just not creating content that is competitive enough to rank. So before we go on to actually creating that kind of content, let's answer some of these questions that have come in here. As I look through them, Julian, is there anything you want to add that I may have forgotten in my monologue there?
No, I'll just point out that Nat purposely turned off his videos. He'll turn it back on when relevant to show you guys. But Nat, I'll let you dig into the open Q&A.
Apologies if the video on and off is confusing. I'm trying to do my best to share relevant stuff without letting it become distracting. All right, so tactics to get websites, bloggers, news sites to mention a backlink to you from anonymous attendee. It's a wonderful name. Yes, so stuff from Backlinko is excellent. I'd say Backlinko, Brian Dean, is probably one of the best SEO blogs out there. It's one of the only ones I read. His stuff is really, really good. And the thing you mentioned is that people don't respond to your emails. So we do link building for our clients, and for us, like a 1% to 2% hit rate per outreach is considered good, right? You just got to be willing to send hundreds of emails. We send about, I want to say 200 to 500 emails per week per client we're doing link building for, because that's really the only way to do it at scale. So you just got to be patient. And then the other really big thing is you need to have something that is worth them linking to. We're going to cover that more next, but if you don't have something really, really good to motivate them giving you the link, they're not going to do it. So what we usually do is, if we're doing backlinking for a client, we'll pick just 2 pieces per month that we're going to use as link targets. And then we make those articles like super duper extra awesome, so that whenever we send them to other blogs in the niche, they go like, oh my God, this piece of content is amazing. I should definitely include it instead of this other like weak piece I was linking to before. So that's the other really big factor you have to consider. KPIs like time on page, bounce rate, affect SEO these days. I honestly don't think about a lot of these in terms of SEO very much, because depending on the contents of the article and how much time on page it takes to answer the question, right? Like the ultimate, Google wants people's questions answered, right? And Google will punish your site if people go to your blog and then go back to Google to keep looking for answers. But if they go to your site and then in 40 seconds their question is answered and they bounce, that's not so bad, right? Because you've actually fulfilled their goal. So I only am concerned about time on page and bounce rate if like other goals around are not being met. And Julian can talk about this more in conversion rate optimization. The quantity over difficulty squared formula works. I'm just going to suggest if you Google like Nat Eliason Ahrefs content optimization or something like that, I have an article where I talk about this a lot more in depth and how we arrive at that score. And that would be, I think, really useful for understanding a bit more about how we think about difficulty and volume. How many blog posts would you recommend to be posting per week? Usually minimum 2. For all of our client projects, we won't do fewer than 2 per week. We see really good results in the 4 to 6 per week range when companies can afford it. And then, I mean, you can go as high as you want. We've got one client where we're doing 27 articles per week, right? Which is a lot. You don't have to go that high, but generally, you know, the more you're willing to do, the more you can rank on, the faster your results will be. Should one page cover only one keyword? It depends. Oh, and by the way, Julian, if I'm like going too long with Q&A, please cut me off. I'm just going to keep.
No, keep going. Let's do one more minute or two.
Okay, cool. Should one page cover only one keyword? How to combine them? So what I like to do is start with a narrower keyword and then work up to the broader keyword. So let's say I want to ultimately rank for green tea. I'll start with an article that's like green tea benefits and get ranked for that. And then once it's already ranked for green tea benefits, then I will optimize and expand it to rank for the harder keyword, which is green tea. Typically, I would say focus on one main keyword you want an article to rank for, and then you can optimize it over time to include more or to move up into higher level keywords. What are some tools, marketing stacks you're currently using? I do almost everything in Ahrefs, Google Docs, Google Analytics, ClearScope, and AccuRanker. That's, I'd say, like 90% of my workflow.
Cool, Nat, if it's all good, I'll cut you off there. And if you want to continue to the next section, that would be great.
Sure. There's one technical question here, Julian, about are people not able to join the webinar anymore?
Oh, it should work.
Someone's saying the link doesn't work anymore.
I'll let Neil look into it kindly while you continue. And Nat, sorry, actually not Nat, I mean everybody else who's currently in here. All of your upcoming questions, if you could please address them to Nat's new topic. So we're going to dismiss the current outstanding ones, and any new questions, please make them about what Nat is about to dive into right now. Go ahead, Nat.
And I can say I'm going to answer a number of these in the next section and a half, so stay tuned. All right. The next really important thing is writing content that can rank. And I pulled this out because something that gets, I think, missed a lot in SEO and content is that it is probably the most zero-sum, most competitive marketing channel there is. And that's just because for a given keyword, there can only be 1, 2, 3 winners who are going to get all of the traffic. Meanwhile, Instagram, you can have thousands of like keto lifestyle accounts that can do very well, because on Instagram or even on like Facebook ads and stuff, you can kind of have like a one-to-many relationship where many accounts can target the same person, and they're going to like run up each other's bid prices on ads, and they might use up some of the like feed real estate on Instagram. But you know, me on Instagram, I could be following 10, 20 keto accounts and see content from all of them. But on Google, like only one keto blog is probably going to win a lot of the keywords. So a big part of SEO is that you really, 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 really have to have the best content. If you don't have that, you're not going to win unless you have a disgusting number of links to your site or you are in a very low competition space. So writing content that can rank is just like the big force multiplier here. And the thing a lot of companies, a lot of marketing people have trouble with is that you're probably not the best writer for the job. A lot of like marketers, a lot of founders think that they can write really well, they can do their content marketing, they'll like bang out a couple articles a week and it'll be great. It's probably not going to work. And that's just because it requires a certain style of writing. It requires a certain level of experience. It requires a certain consistency that it's probably not you if you haven't already published hundreds or thousands of articles, right? Like this should be your barometer, is if you have published hundreds or thousands of articles online and you've gotten a site to over 100,000 organic visitors per month, then yeah, sure, like write your own content, fit it in your schedule, make it work. If you haven't done that, you shouldn't be doing it. You should be finding someone else to write it. You can definitely help guide the strategy, but your time and energy will be much better spent on investing in a really, really good writer. And I'm going to share my screen again to show you a little bit about how we do this, because this is something that, you know, we realized we had to invest a lot of time and energy in. So we actually created like a whole separate hiring call database thing for writers. And you can see here, like this is, okay, so this is filtered right now, but if we take off the filters, this is how many? It's like 1,900 some writers, right, that have contacted us, that we've contacted and added their information on These are all the things that they can write about. These are their like rates per word. And this is just like essential because it allows you to, or allows us anyway, to find like the best writer for each job. So if you're going to like create content, that is where your energy should be going first, is finding the absolute best writer who can write the content that's going to be better than what's already out there. Because if we look at the people who are doing it really, really well, and I'm going to bring up an example here to show you all, they are investing in creating like really epic content. So Dr. Axe is not an awesome example right now because his traffic just got destroyed. I think they were doing some sketchy stuff with links, but their content is still amazing. So let's find a good example here. All right, how to stop diarrhea, why not? If we scroll through this, you can see like it's very, very broken out. Like it's very well organized. Like these citations are all to like really good sources. He's got custom graphics in here, right? Like he's interlinking to the other stuff on his page. I mean, look how long this article is. Look how detailed this is, right? If you're not going to make something that is at least as good, if not better than this article for this topic, then you shouldn't even bother publishing it. Because again, very zero sum, very competitive, and you need to be better than whoever's out there. So how do you do that, right? Number one, like I said, is getting really, really good writers to work on your content and being willing to pay for them. Most writers that we work with, we're paying anywhere from $150 to like $400 per article per about like 1,500 words. So that's higher than I think most founders and marketers expect to pay for articles, but it is necessary if you want something competitive. That said, there are things beyond hiring good writers you can do to try to engineer content that will rank. So the first is what I just did, right? Looking at what the best are doing, looking at what's ranking in the top 3, top 5 for your keyword right now, and saying, okay, this is what I need to be. Like they have written a 5,000 word, meticulously cited, epic article, and I need to do something better if I want to beat them. The other thing you can do, and this is a little bit more like, I don't know, like woo-woo for lack of a better term, is ask yourself, does this article fully answer my reader's question? Because that is really what Google wants content to do. It doesn't necessarily care that yours is the longest. Longness is a ranking factor, or at least long content does seem to rank better, right, than short content, but it's not necessary for your content to be long to win. And as a good example here, I hope I'm still ranked for this. I think I am, but if we Google how to hide email pop-ups, let's see. There we go. All right. So this used to be a little higher. That's fine. Maybe it's how to block email pop-ups where I show up. But if we click on this article and it goes to my site, like you can see, this is an extremely short article. It's maybe like 150, 200 words, but it still ranks really well because it fully answers the question that people have when they're searching this term. So that's the next question you can ask is, do I fully answer the question that people are searching for? The third thing you can do is use some of the tools I've alluded to before. So if we go back into Ahrefs, for example, let's say that we wanted to rank for benefits of green tea, right? Very high difficulty topic, but very high volume. If you can rank for this, that's a lot of traffic. So you can actually go into a tool like Ahrefs and say, okay, pages that rank for this keyword, what else do they rank for, right? There's this also rank for section here. We can go down and we can say view all 6,000 odd keywords, and we can quickly scroll through here and we can start making a list of everything in it that would make sense to include in our article. So really quickly, right? Okay, so we should talk about caffeine. We should talk about flavonoids. We should talk about, we should look up what this is. Maybe this is important. We should look up, catechins. We should look up, I don't know what consumption function is. Maybe we should look that up, right? We should look up Japanese green tea versus other green teas, right? Green tea versus black tea. Okay, that's important. Does it need to be organic, right? These are all things that we can include to make sure our article is competitive with what else is currently ranking on this topic. And then the third thing we can do that I like that can save you a lot of time is there's a tool called ClearScope. Not affiliated with them. I don't get anything for pimping them out. I just really like them. And what they let you do is you can plug in a keyword, and then it will show you the relevant terms for that keyword based on the other page's ranking. So like on the back end, what it's doing is it's going and scraping like the top 10 results on Google for this keyword and saying, all right, of the pages that show up for how much to tip pizza delivery, what do they talk about? What terms do they use in their content? So, all right, they're using the term pizza delivery. They're using the term like minimum wage, right? Probably saying like you should tip them because they're earning minimum wage. It's talking about delivery charge, talking about maybe something with Papa John's, right? These are all terms that you probably want to include if you want to be on the top of Google for this keyword. And then what's really helpful is it actually gives you like a score for your article as you plug it in. So you can see, you know, okay, this is like an A+ grade piece of content because it's covering so many of the keywords, like word count solid, readability solid. This is a good way to like skip a couple of those steps. You should still do the other steps, but this just makes it a little bit more efficient. So on top of getting a really good writer who can write something really excellent, really well written, using a few of these tools can help make sure that you're making something that is better than what's out there. Go back to Google looking for another answer to their question. Okay.
Sweet.
Before we
Cool.
I was going to say, before we hand it off to Julian for conversion rate optimization, any other questions on writing really, really good content that can rank? Mark asked, are the writers supposed to research your topic? Yes. So at least for us, we only hire writers who have already published on a given topic, who know it super, super well. That's the benefit of having so many to tap into. It's just like we can find somebody who's already published on this stuff, who already knows it really well. They can do the research to write about the topic we need them to write about. It's going to save you a lot of headaches if you just find somebody who already knows the space who can write about it. Insights using video or photo, add them as necessary to make the content more interesting. Don't randomly throw them in just because somebody on the internet said you need a photo every 500 words. Backlink generation method, honestly, we do not have time to go into that, Yemi, but feel free to shoot me an email afterwards and I can give you some high-level notes on it. Where in your process would you use on-page tools like ClearScope? First draft of the article. So we usually tell our writers to or we usually run our content through ClearScope as the first draft is coming in, just to make sure that we're hitting all the keywords in addition to the other SEO optimizations we're doing. Yes, writers for B2B companies cost more in general, much more. A good B2B writer, you might be paying $500 to $1,000 per article, but you can also potentially get a lot more per article. There's another content marketing agency I highly recommend called Grow and Convert. They have a similar model to Growth Machine, but they do fewer, bigger articles for B2B companies, and the articles cost a lot more per article, but since it's B2B, since like it's helping with the sales process, they're higher value per article too. Infographics, they might help. It really depends on if they make sense to include. They don't hurt to try. You can use them to get backlinks too, and they do seem to increase time on page and engagement. So I would say throw them in the article, use them for getting extra traffic from Pinterest. We get about like 500 visitors a day from Pinterest on our Cup and Leaf blog now. It's amazing for acquisition, and infographics play very well there. Okay, I did them all. Julian,
awesome. Well
off
done.
to you.
And I want to point out, guys, we're purposely doing a whirlwind tour of the process Nat uses for all of his content marketing clients. And so if you want to go get a deeper understanding of any of these individual components, Nat, can you just briefly tell them what can they search in Google to go in depth in all the things you've discussed? What blog posts have you written on your site or for Ahrefs, for example?
Yeah, I would say just the Growth Machine blog is a really good place to start. And let's see, if I put something in the chat here, okay, yeah, I can send a chat to all attendees. So I'll drop in a couple of links. We've got one really good case study on like the whole process with Cup and Leaf, which is the site I was showing before. It's like our public example. That one went from like 0 to 150,000 organic visitors in 8 months. It's over 300,000 visitors a month now. And we like basically share the entire process completely for free. So almost anything you were curious about that I just talked about is answered there. And I think Alternatively, I'll share my work email here too. You can email me follow-up questions. If I get a million of them, I might not be able to respond, but if you phrase it well and don't go on too long, I'll happily get back to you there too.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in here. So now we're going to switch to the topic of conversion optimization. You'll see what I mean in just a second. So think of your content in this way. There are 2 steps to getting somebody to buy. First, they have to actually read your content. Unless you know they already want to buy from you, you have to have them read first. And the second step is then buy, and that order matters. So think of it this way. Content conversion optimization is the science of getting people to do those 2 things in order. First, get them to read as much as possible so they come to trust you and they understand why your solution is best, then compel them to purchase. So let's start with getting readers to actually read more of your work. How do you get more consumption? So first, I'll make a note that great intros go a really long way for any blog post. They basically buy goodwill, so readers keep reading. And I like to think of it as having a hook, be concise, skip the self-evident fluff, and tease what you're going to cover so they know they did in fact land in the right place. So this is why blogs include a table of contents at the top of their post. It's not just because it's good for Google, good for SEO, but it also improves read-through rates. So for example, if I know somebody is coming from Google to learn about which product my blog recommends that they buy, at the top of the post, I'm going to say, hey, we're soon going to show you a list of the products you should buy. But first, we're going to explain how to make that buying decision wisely. And that's what the intro should often do. As for the rest of the post, keep it concise, like I said, skip the fluff, use short paragraphs, and use simple sentences. Honestly, my go-to here is I'll go to healthline.com, which does a very good job putting together articles that are super easy to digest. And I will just copy their tactics. How do they do paragraphs? How do they do intros? How do they recommend the next blog post? And that's a trick I love, which is some sites are so well optimized for SEO and for conversion. The unfortunate part is when they're optimized well for SEO, you don't really know. You could do some competitive analysis, but when someone's optimized well for conversion, it's obvious because you're reading the whole post and you're clicking to read more posts. You know a good conversion implementation when you see it. So the first rule of thumb here for optimizing your content so people read more of it so they actually wind up buying is A/B test everything, and in particular your intros. So what's very weird is even professional content marketers, and certainly everybody else, they treat blogs like set it and forget it content, which doesn't make any sense. So you need to treat blog posts like the landing pages they are. So just like you would iterate on a landing page and measure its performance when you're sending ad traffic to it, why wouldn't you do the same for your blog posts? These are the key way you're making money and driving traffic from Google. They need to be subject to optimization. So to put that into a specific suggestion, like A/B test every blog post in a couple ways, which I'll get into, and see which variant of each post gets the highest read to completion rate and, more importantly, gets purchases. So as a quick example, when I write a post on Julian.com, sometimes I'll find nobody's actually finishing the post. And in a moment, I'll explain how I know that. So what I might do is I'll spend 10 minutes making tweaks to that post. And with about 10 minutes of work, suddenly I'll get a 30% read completion rate. So I'll go from like 0 to 5% to 30%, meaning a third of people who hit that page are going to read the whole thing, right? And that improved completion rate then means I get way more newsletter subscriptions, or in your guys' case, purchases for your product or signups or whatever. So never just release a post and then set it and forget it. That is crazy. So think of it this way. You should always have an A/B test running on every blog post, because all the traffic you're getting today that's not being tested against is a wasted opportunity to acquire more data on what would actually convert people better. So I'll mention the tool that I use to run my tests is Google Optimize, optimize.google.com. It's free, it's fantastic, it's as good as its competitors in many regards. And if you go to julian.com and look at my growth marketing guide, there's a page on A/B testing, and that will give you the entire breakdown of how I do A/B testing, including with Google Optimize. So more specifically though, here are a couple things you can A/B test. So I would try to come up with an alternate intro with a different hook and different degree of brevity. So you can have maybe like a 3-paragraph intro. You can have a 1-paragraph intro. That's one sort of like variable to opt to A/B test, right? And the other that tends to move the needle a bit more is what is the hook you're presenting to get them to keep reading? So like, what's the story that your post tells that you're going to tease in your intro? What are they going to find out by reading? For example, I'm going to show you the best mattress in the world, period. Then you start the whole article, then you give them the mattress at the end, whatever the link is, right? That's a very basic example of a hook, but alternate what that hook is. See which one gets greater read-throughs. And the reason that's so high leverage on your intro is your intro is what kicks off the goodwill and gets people to read more. Like you can have a really crappy middle, but your intro has to be solid. You can also A/B test the CTAs, or the calls to action, which are the links or the buttons that get people to read more of your posts or get them to buy from you. And your goal is to A/B test different pieces of text and different visuals to get more qualified clicks on these CTAs. That has to be subject to testing. On Julian.com, I tried a big test where I had two different ways of trying to get people's emails after they read one of my guides. One was like this big call out with like a blue background and a big header. And it's like, hey, sign up here. Like it was like it momentarily paused the entire article. It said, hey, sign up here. The other thing I tried was a very inline, natural, sort of hidden little text box buried within sentences in a paragraph. Like it was so natural. And that got way more email subscriptions. So I'll get back to that in a moment. But here's where it gets really interesting. How do you actually know whether people are reading your post? And how do you revise your post to get people to read more of it? The intro is one thing, but what about the middle of the post, right? So the tool I use is called hotjar.com. And Hotjar lets you make heat maps, in particular scroll depth maps, which show you how far people scroll down your page. And what I do is I look at all these breakpoints in the scroll depth map, and I can see that people that, let's say, for example, 50% of people get to section 3, but only 20% get to section 4. Well, that means section 3 was extremely boring, and nobody could actually get through it to get to section 4. And so I look for those huge drop-offs between sections, which again is being measured by how deep people scroll into the web page. And when I see a huge drop-off, that is the high leverage area to redo your post. So I will go into that exact area like a surgeon. I will make that thing that's causing people to leave more concise. I'll use shorter paragraphs, simpler sentences. I'll remove filler, or maybe I'll delete the section altogether if it's straight up boring. I'll make the header that precedes that section way more what I'll call read baity, right? So it's the sort of thing where you're like, okay, that next header that I just saw in the corner of my eye is so enticing, even though this section's boring, I'm going to keep reading to get to the next one. And so quick example of that is, let's say your header was wrapping up because it was your conclusion. Well, maybe I would rename that to what you still don't know yet. That's a bit more compelling, right? It's like, wait, what don't I know yet? So that's a little bit of a read baity way to redo your headers that are coming up after that big drop-off point. And one last tip here is, when I see a point's causing a lot of drop-off, I'll add cliffhangers. So just like a TV episode before the commercial break, I might say something like, everything I just told you is true, but there's a huge exception, period. Then I'll have the header for the next section, and the next section is going to fulfill that cliffhanger. And that's how I get people to just smoothly go through all these major drop-off points. And when I do that to a blog post and I heal all of the drop-off points with that technique, the read to completion is through the roof, comparatively goes through the roof. It can like 10x. And then whatever I'm driving, purchases, newsletter subscriptions, goes way up. So there's one more way to think about, I'm sure there's many ways in fact, but one more way I'm going to cover to think about optimizing your blog posts. And this has to do with going back to the bread and butter, the basics, using Google Analytics. So this is most useful for seeing what is called the exit rate of your post. This is a key metric that gets overlooked very often. People know about bounce rates. Exit rates are more useful to me. So exit rates are the percentage of page views on that blog post that then resulted in the reader leaving your site. So they may have already visited a page before this. So it wasn't necessarily the first post that they landed on, but when they got to this post, then they exited. And so think of it this way. The lowest exit rate posts are the ones that are so good that people keep reading more posts after they read it. And that's a really powerful signal. If you can find those using Google Analytics, because they let you rank by exit rates, then those are what I'm going to call your hero posts. And those are the moneymaker ones that when someone reads it, they get hungry for more of what you have. And so think of it this way. All of your content on your blog, to some extent, exists just to drive people toward those hero posts, those hero low exit rate posts. Because when they read them, they're more likely to convert and to become fans. So I'll wrap it up there. One more tip here is a couple ways to fix your Google Analytics for content marketing. And these are two things that get overlooked constantly, and people misunderstand their Google Analytics, including the professionals that I've seen who've been doing this for years. The first major fix is Google Analytics is not telling you the real time on page of any of your pages. Unless someone visits blog post 1 and then visits blog post 2 or performs some other action, then Google doesn't know how much time they spent on the first blog post, because the way they calculate time spent on page is they calculate the difference, like the timestamp delta between those two events. And they go, oh, well, someone visited the next page after 5 minutes of being on the first page, therefore they must have spent 5 minutes on the first page. It's not only super, like, it's not very effective, but what about all the people who just read one post and then left? How much time did they spend? Google marks that as 0 seconds. It totally screws with all of your time on page data and gives you the wrong impression as to whether people love your content or not. And so the trick here is Google for riveted.js. And maybe Neil can drop that name in the Zoom chat here. So riveted.js is a JavaScript plugin that enhances Google Analytics to properly measure how long was somebody on your page, no matter whether they read one post or more. And using that data, now you know, does a long blog post get read for 30 seconds or 9 minutes? And that's an indicator of how much you're improving your drop-off points using the heat map analysis trick that I shared just a moment ago. One last trick for fixing Google Analytics broken behavior is understand that Google Analytics does what's called session level tracking. So when someone visits your website, a session initiates. When they leave, the session concludes. But if they come back later, 30 minutes later, or on a different device, Google Analytics doesn't necessarily count them as the same person. They're a different session. And so when you're looking at all your session data, which is the primary way Google Analytics shows you data, it's completely wrong if you have a blog where a lot of people come back, consume voraciously more of your stuff on a weekly basis, and you want to measure that behavior on the user level, not the session level, over a period of time. And the trick here is you use Facebook Analytics, which is a tool few people know about. It's wonderful. It'll track people across every single journey on your site up to 6 months, and it'll track them across devices. So when I have the Julian.com guide that has 6 pages, and I know it takes people a while, like a couple weeks to really work through the full guide, I use Facebook Analytics funnel tracking to see how they mosey through my guide over the span of multiple weeks. And that's how I get real meaningful data on user level engagement. So I'm going to wrap up here with, so that was me wrapping up the whole optimization discussion. I do want to end real quick to see how much time we have with 2 quick principles, and then we're going to get to the Q&A with Nat and myself. 2 quick principles on how to actually get people to buy from you now that they are consuming your blog posts. First is segue very naturally. So earlier I mentioned that inline email capture greatly outperformed this giant like show-stopping banner I had. That's because people have a reflex. They have an aversion built up to seeing anything that looks like an ad or a banner. So you have to be very subtle. Style your links to buy from you or go to your shop page as natural as you would any other text link. Like, hey, click here to see more about what we offer. That is what converts in 2019. Maybe in 2002, people responded better to giant banner ads. Today, people are quite annoyed with them, right? Also, when you're going to pitch yourself, don't do it in the first paragraph. Wait till they've consumed a bunch of your posts, which is why I've gone on this 10-minute spiel about getting people to consume. Because the more they read, the more they trust you, the more they see your expertise, and the more primed they are to buy once you give them the pitch, which you should try to give them somewhere midway or toward the end of the post. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to give you guys a quick housekeeping thing, then we're going to do some Q&A, so I hope your questions are coming in. And flood us right now. You got a couple minutes to hit us with questions while I do a quick housekeeping to kill some time while I wait for them. And they can be anything for Nat or I on the topic of content in any regard. Keep them coming. So quick housekeeping is, if we record this, we'll shoot you an email of the recording, not to worry. Yes, there's purposely no video right now, not to worry. And some background context on why are we doing this webinar. So we wanted to show you guys what it's like to learn modern growth tactics from people who do it every day. And so in my case, I run demandcurve.com, and we'll train you to do copywriting, ad creation, B2B outreach, and other areas of growth. And in Nat's case, my co-host, he runs growthmachine.com, which is a content marketing agency. And so they'll run your growth for you, your content marketing for you. I'll let him talk more about it in a moment. And Nat also has thewriterfinder.com, which is where you can go find all those writers Nat was alluding to earlier, where if you don't have someone to run your blog, that is an amazing resource he's put together over the last few months. And finally, a quick note is someone came across my inbox recently who I thought was a phenomenal copywriter. So if you're looking for someone who can copyright landing pages, emails, or ads, her name is Juliana. I'm going to place her email into the Zoom chat. I think I may have just caused my Chrome to poop. So 1 second, guys. All right, my Chrome is back in action. So I'm going to paste her email in the Zoom chat. I thought she was really good, so I wanted to share with you guys. Her name's Juliana Johan. All right, let's do some Q&A. What do we got? Nat, I'll let you kick it off first.
Yeah, I've been responding to a bunch. Thoughts on creating video content on the YouTube channel. I can't advise on how to do YouTube SEO. I'm not an expert in it, but what I can say is we've done something for a couple of clients where they either have a video team and already have a blog, or they have an awesome YouTube channel and don't have a blog. And then we just take one and turn it into the other. So in one case, I'm thinking of a company had a really good YouTube channel that was ranking for a lot of keywords. So we took their YouTube channel and then turned all of their top videos into articles. And then whenever somebody searched for a keyword, like the #1 result was their YouTube video and the #2 result was their article. And that was awesome for capturing another 20 to 40% of the traffic for each keyword. So when you have an opportunity to rank for a topic with multiple mediums, it's an awesome strategy. I highly recommend it. Somebody added me. So, all right, Rob, if I can only write 1 article per week, is it better to publish 1 per week or save up a backlog over 6 months and then publish 2 to 3 articles per week? No, if you can just publish 1 article per week, do that. I'd say go for it. Your results are going to be a lot slower, right? You're looking at 6 to 12 months to see some tick up in SEO traffic versus 4 to 6, but it's much better to start getting that content out early, to start getting some age on it, because age is a ranking factor for blogs and individual pieces. So don't delay it if you don't have to. The only time we bank content to release it later is when a client is not launched or has not launched their site yet, or they're doing a site redesign and want us to hold content for a little bit. Otherwise, just get it up as early as possible. Even if your site is like ugly and it won't break things, to publish now and then launch the redesign later. Like, just get it up there, get some age on it, because it's going to help you rank sooner rather than later. All right, Julie. Oh, wait, can I answer one more? Alexander just asked a very good question.
Yeah, for sure.
301 redirecting old sites to get backlinks and SEO results faster. Very cool, very interesting strategy. It does work. Be careful with it because it is a little gray hat. It's a little, it's not Google's favorite strategy, so don't overdo it. But if you see a good opportunity, absolutely go for it.
Awesome. Taurus, what are our thoughts on images, GIFs, and so forth in a blog post? I like to think of creative as needing to be additive. So if I'm going to put a GIF in or an image, it's going to add something extra to the post. It's going to really nicely summarize and visualize something complicated I was saying. or it's going to be an example of something that I couldn't clearly explain in words. Otherwise, if I'm just using images like show a woman smiling after I talk about cars or something, or show a picture of a generic car after I talk about something, it doesn't add, and all it does is it makes people scroll more, and it kind of gives them more areas to break and realize this is boring and they should stop reading. So I try to make my images additive, not just random fluff. Should you go back and touch up old blog posts? Absolutely. I have found that if you have a blog post that's doing well, touching it up here and there lets Google see that it's staying up to date, because they do prioritize timeliness, if that's the right word, but to a minor extent. It's not going to make or break your strategy. But if times change with the topic you are covering, if the current president is Trump and you're talking about Obama and that's your top rank for something to do with the US president, you should change, right? But some things can be very evergreen. Some things don't change as much. So it's a case-by-case basis scenario. Let me see what else.
Julian, can I hop in quickly on that?
Please do, please do.
Yeah, so that I'm going to disagree slightly. That's one of what we've seen to be the most effective SEO strategies for established sites. And in multiple cases, we've gone in and re-optimized old content on a site and double or tripled their organic traffic, like within a 6-month time period, just by taking stuff that was already starting to rank, but was maybe on the second page of Google, and then making it better targeted for its keywords, making it a little longer, updating it, republishing it, re-promoting it. And then that took it from, say, position 11 to position 2 or 3, which is like basically 10x the traffic, just because of how Google traffic falls off. So if you have a blog with like a couple hundred articles, or even like 50 or 60 articles, and some of them are starting to rank for keywords, start there, optimize those for the keywords they're starting to rank for, and you can see results way faster there than you can publishing new content.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. So I was thinking more in the case of if you're already like number 1, you're afraid of dropping to number 2. But yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, don't touch it.
Yeah, low-hanging fruit, very well said. Go for that stuff that's already ranking decently, and that's probably higher leverage than, trying to create something brand new necessarily for the same topic. Let's see. For B2B SaaS, what's the best way to convert users? Newsletters, what do you do with them? It depends whether you're a low price point or really high touch, long sales cycle type of product. If you're an enterprise tool going for the call, very often you'll want to first demonstrate expertise by perhaps pushing let's say a guide, maybe an email gated guide that you can dive into and see these people are experts, and then you might be compelled to hop on a sales call with them. In contrast, if you're like a cheaper tool that anyone can use, most B2B or SMB businesses, then I would go right for the landing page. They read the blog post. As long as the blog post primed them well for why they would want to use your tool, then bring them to the landing page. But if the post they landed on is, let me just decline that call. If the post they landed on is a big segue from your product, first maybe bring them to a post that is a tight pitch for your product, right? So go one better blog post to the side and have that blog post get the purchase. So bring them to the homepage. I have to run, Nat. You're welcome to answer a few more questions. If not, we can wrap it up. Up to you, Nat. But either way, thank you so much, everybody. And I'll throw to Nat.
All right. Yeah, I'll hang out and answer a few more while people are still asking them. I know I always appreciated when other people stuck around to answer questions. So one thing I'm seeing a lot is questions about posting on LinkedIn, Medium, Quora, all of those versus your own blog. Always, 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 always own blog first. You never want one of those other sites popping up when people search for your content, because you don't control it. They could take it down at any time. You can't convert it as well. What I do is always publish on my main site, and then I will republish on those sites as it makes sense. So I'll republish on Medium, usually just to get some free money from the partner program. Might republish on LinkedIn if it makes sense, but your primary content strategy should always be on your primary domain first. Guidelines for blog post length. The number one thing is just making sure that it's fully answering someone's question, whether that takes 500 or 5,000 words. If you want something a bit more generic than that, 1,500 to 2,000 usually does the job. Navigating compliance issues like content marketing in health supplement space. Yeah, this is a really big thing now, especially with the Medic update last fall from Google. I would say if you can, make sure your articles are reviewed by some kind of doctor, nutritionist, somebody who's sealed approval you can put on the page. If you look at Healthline, and if you look at Healthline, they do this every page. It says who reviewed it and what their like level of expertise is, and that does seem to help. Google does seem to care. Another really good way you can signal that level of quality in your content is to be very careful about how you link to other sites and how you do citations. So you'll see a lot of sites like say something to the effect of, like turmeric is really good for detoxing, and they'll link to like healthymama123.com. Don't do that, right? Only link to like PubMed, Healthline, like NIH.gov, right? Like link to those sites that are actually good authorities. Don't link to other random blogs unless you absolutely have to. Content marketing through weekly and monthly newsletters, love it. I have a weekly newsletter. It's done wonderful things for me. It's different. It's a different kind of content marketing. It's not as SEO focused. It's more like influencer brand focused. But yeah, if you have a good way to do it, definitely go for it. Never pay for links. It's not worth it. It's going to be really low quality links. Those sites get shut down all the time. Sometimes those sites get targeted. So like, I'll actually tell you a story. I have a friend who had a marketing agency that was doing about $1 million a year. They were doing pay-for-play link placement. They had relationships with a bunch of blogs where people could pay my friend's agency to get links on these like high authority blogs. It would help them rank better. It was awesome for a year. And then basically I didn't know Google did this, but Google had like an undercover agent essentially pretend to be a company, paid my friend's agency for links, and then Google recorded all the links that the site got backlinks from and then de-indexed all of them. So every site that my friend's agency had a relationship with got shut down in terms of SEO value, and all of his other clients lost all of the link value they had paid for. So it's really like long-term not worth it to pay for links. Just try to get them organically, try to get them naturally through outreach. It's going to be a much better long-term strategy, even though the volume of links is lower. 4 medium length pieces per month, or 1 to 2 really in-depth pieces. I would say 1 to 2 really in-depth pieces because you can usually target those at higher value keywords, higher volume keywords. And if you can get a single article ranked for a 10,000 volume keyword, that is better than 5 articles ranking for 100 volume or 1,000 volume keywords, right? So I would say if you have to pick between airing on fewer meteor posts or more shallower posts, go with the fewer meteor posts. Most important thing to increase domain authority, backlinks, just high authority, really good backlinks. That's going to be the most valuable thing you can do if you want to get your DA up. If you have to triage, I would say focus on getting fewer links from higher domain authority sites. Some kind of PR, some kind of outreach will help a lot with that. If you have alumni networks, local newspapers, magazines, anything that you can be featured in related to your work, that's a really good way to get started. .edu sites are amazing for domain authority. So see what high value links you can get instead of trying to get hundreds of lower value ones. Oh yeah, other writers guest write for your blog, love it. Just be selective. Make sure that they actually are good writers and they're not just like sending you a 500 word piece of shit to get a backlink. That's what most guest bloggers are doing, is they're just doing it for the backlink. You want to make it very valuable for them beyond the backlink, so that they would do it even if they weren't getting a backlink. When I was running marketing for Sumo, we would tell people that their article would be featured to 300,000 people on our email list. And that would give me an excuse to be really hard on them edits wise. You want to make sure that their article is going to be awesome if you allow guest writers on your blog. Otherwise, your blog's going to be filled with crap, and it's actually going to hurt you in the long run, because sites with a lot of bad articles makes it harder for the good articles to rank. All right, and then create content with an agency that pitches for syndication versus agencies that stress original content. Pretty much always original content. I would not allow syndicated content on your site. You could work with somebody to syndicate out your content, but honestly, it's a fairly low ROI activity. There are very few good places to syndicate content to anymore. I wouldn't pay for it personally. Like, any money you're spending on syndicating would probably be better spent on just getting more content on your site. Best way to promote blog posts, I'm going to share a link to Actually, it's in the chat somewhere. It's just growthmachine.com/blog/case study, our SEO case study. We talk a lot about what we do for promo there, but high level, there are actually very few things I think that move the needle in a meaningful way, unless you're willing to spend for ads. The things that we do like are Reddit. So it's a little gray hat, but if you can find a good subreddit to post your article in, and then if you can log into a few other Reddit accounts to give it a few initial upvotes, just so that it gets out of the new feed and into the main feed for a subreddit, that can lead to anywhere from a few hundred to a few 100,000 views on the piece. And that can sometimes be enough to help your entire blog rank better really quickly. So I love Reddit. I love Facebook groups. LinkedIn groups are not bad too, but they're much less active than Facebook groups. If I had to just pick like 3 places, I would say Reddit, Facebook groups, and then building up a Pinterest page over time. We get, if it makes sense for your business, doesn't make sense for all businesses, but for us, we get a disgusting amount of traffic from Pinterest. I love it. Blogging platform, don't use Ghost, don't use Squarespace, don't use Wix, use WordPress or Webflow. Those are the only 2 where we see really good, consistent results. I think Webflow, you actually get better results, I think, because their code is so much cleaner than WordPress. I love Webflow. It's not just a Julian plug. The downside of Webflow is it's just not quite there the same way WordPress is. It's missing some really basic stuff like custom HTML and the rich text editor. But if you can live with those limitations, Webflow is amazing. Otherwise, definitely WordPress. I think we're getting to the last questions here. Yes, so I'm not seeing any other main ones. Relevant content about a product, info on your page versus interesting topical blog posts. You can do both. It's different strategies. I would say get the traffic through the interesting topical blog posts, and then the relevant content about a product or info on your page, that's good like conversion content for you to use in your email funnel. So that can come later once you're already converting people. Subdomain is okay for a blog. It doesn't have to be on the same domain as the other landing pages. If it can be, that will help the overall SEO of the site more. But sometimes just like from a back-end CRM issue, it's annoying. Like, don't use the Shopify blog, for example. The Shopify blog is really poorly optimized. It doesn't rank as well. Do a separate blog on WordPress. If you want it on the same domain, you can do something called a reverse proxy to mask it, to make it look like it's all on your root domain. We don't have time to go into that right now, but that would be a good way to hack it. I generally don't recommend using the Shopify blog if you can avoid it. All right, I gotta get ready to go as well. Best source for technical SEO. Shoot, I wish I had something good for you. Whoever just asked about technical SEO, my email's in the chat. Send me an email and I can look up some things to send to you. I don't have them on hand right now, but with that, thank you all for coming out. Like, this was super fun. I really hope this was valuable. Julian's an amazing guy for hosting all these webinars. It was a lot of fun to get to join him, and real pleasure to be here. So hope that was valuable to all of you. If you don't know about Demand Curve, definitely check it out. Julian's doing some really cool stuff with like helping people learn marketing and growth. He's awesome at it. So I definitely check out Demand Curve. If you want more about what we do, you can just go to growthmachine.com. I've got a lot of blog articles that are useful there, or if you want to reach out to have us help you with your content, happy to talk about that too. And then, like we said before, if you need a writer to help you execute on this, you can go to writerfinder.com too, and that's the database I was showing you before.
Hey everyone, that marks the end of the Demand Curves webinar. Thank you for listening. And you can go to demandcurve.com to have us train you in growth marketing.